So I'm here just as a representative of the Wake Up, the group I'm part of, and of Plum Village and Thich Nhat Hanh. And so I'm very grateful for the support of my fellow Wake Uppers who've come here. Really, you are up here, but you just happen to be over there. And just, it's really helpful. I'll start my stopwatch so I don't go too much over. How many people who are here are somewhat familiar with any of the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh already? It'd be just good to know. And how many not so much? Okay, so a mix. And just because it will probably be some flavor in what I speak about, how many people would say they are somewhat supporters of Extinction Rebellion in some way or another? And how many people not so much? Maybe this is the place where it's hard to say that in public. But it's okay. Okay, just to know. So I think there were a few things I wanted to pick out just for these short minutes of what has been offered by Thich Nhat Hanh and his community. And I think the first starts with the situation he was in. He ordained as a monk aged 16, and he was a monk and a teacher in the time of what I guess is probably better to call the American War in Vietnam. And even before that, as a young monk, he'd read these texts and these histories of times where Buddhism had played this huge part in society as a positive role. And I think he saw in his society Buddhism was somewhere a little bit separated off somewhere. So he had a vision for Buddhism that really renewed and bettered society, and the war really gave an opportunity to put that to the test. So one of the quotes he said is, "When bombs begin to fall on people, you cannot stay in the meditation hall all of the time." He also said, meditation is not to escape from society, but to see what is going on. Once there is seeing, there must be acting. With mindfulness, we know what to do and what not to do to help. And as a young-ish yet experienced monk, for him that involved starting a school of youth for social service in Vietnam, training young people to go to the villages and rebuild them, a printing press, a university. It was a very multifaceted way of approaching the situation. And also, I actually learned this recently, very targeted. I knew for a long time that Thich Nhat Hanh had convinced Martin Luther King to speak out against the Vietnam War in America. That actually previously Martin Luther King saw it as not directly concerned with his fight. And Thich Nhat Hanh convinced him otherwise. But what I found out recently is actually Thich Nhat Hanh knew for a long time before that meeting with Martin Luther King that he wanted to meet Martin Luther King. And that if he could convince Martin Luther King, he had a chance. So even though aimlessness might be a door of liberation, for this Zen master, there was some focus. And for me, that resonates with the laser focus of Extinction Rebellion in studying what needs to happen to make change in society. And what I think is what's really heartening is the kind of mindfulness practice that he pioneered in many ways was road tested in such difficult circumstances. I don't know, maybe people are aware, but the really classic book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, I think it's one of the first popular Western books with that word now, that you see mindful chef. I went past a mindful dentist in Croydon Crystal Palace a couple of weeks ago. But that was a new word, mindfulness, and that book was actually written as a series of letters when Thich Nhat Hanh Thai, as we call him affectionately, was in exile in the West. He wrote these letters back to the members of the School of Youth and Social Service back in Vietnam for how to use mindfulness to sustain them. And these are situations where they didn't know which colleague was going to get killed tomorrow. And yet they took these practices and used them. And so for me, that gives me hope, you know? Is it right to do this breathing, sitting and breathing thing? Should I just be aware of my steps when everything that is happening right now? Well, I feel hope that these practices have been road tested in that way. And some of those, like to take a day a week was a day of mindfulness a week was one of the offerings in Miracle of Mindfulness. And I find actually even just being engaged with Extinction Rebellion, like my digital consumption is going up somewhat. There's more Twitter feeds and there's more Facebook, and it's all somehow worthwhile. And then just to take a day and turn my data off, it's like, for me, it's feeling more and more necessary to really take that time and to know that that is actually the right thing to do. So, and later, Thich Nhat and his community have been very engaged with this environmental situation that we face ourselves in. And I think one of his great offerings, and it's not like there is any monopoly on this, but to really draw this out is this idea, and it's really encapsulated in this book, Love Letter to the Earth. And it's this idea that if we collectively want to protect our planet, we have to fall in love with our planet. And we can fall in love with that planet, with our planet, by seeing our planet as Mother Earth, as our mother, as seeing that it is a living being, seeing ourselves as not separate from the earth. And that, you know, that we see that when we drink water, when we eat foods, when we breathe. We see that connection. And for me, I found myself quite guilty at times of going, yeah, I'm in love with Mother Earth. Totally, I get it, I need the earth, blah, blah, yeah, in love with Mother Earth. And then actually when I look at my own practice, I see that experience of falling in love with the earth has so much more depth to go to. The way that Thai writes in this book, every morning when I wake up and get dressed, I leave my hut and take a walk. Usually the sky is still dark, and I walk gently, aware of nature all around me and the fading stars. One time, after walking, I came back to my hut and wrote this sentence: I am in love with Mother Earth. I was as excited as a young man who had fallen in love. My heart was beating with excitement. And the kind of love, I also reflect on the love of a parent to a child. And if a young child were to, God forbid, fall into a river, then I imagine a parent would not think twice to jump in. It's just so natural when there is that real, true love. And I see that I can go, as much as I appreciate nature, as much as I appreciate green trees, as much as I try and appreciate the food that I eat, I see that it's a daily practice to cultivate this love so that it can become a source of energy. I think that we will need to do what needs to be done. And it heartens me that this love is so evident in the Extinction Rebellion movement. It's there at the heart of it. And there are various practices I find useful, like Gatha poems, these short poetic collections of 4 lines. So one of my favorites is a Gatha for turning on the tap. So this daily activity, turning on the, it's as I turn on the tap, it can be water comes from high mountain sources. Water flows deep in the earth. Miraculously, water comes to us and sustains all life. My gratitude is filled to the brim. So I want to keep this practice alive of finding the sacred and the magical in the everyday, but not just for its own sake, but also as a source of energy for what is needed, as I said. And we can do that when we eat our food. We can do that as we try to offer a little bit with the walking meditations. We can do that when we take steps on the earth. There are the gathas we shared then that, like, with one step, Mother Earth. With another step, I'm here for you. Mother Earth, I'm here for you. But I think one of the challenges for me is to be aware, to cultivate this love, and then you also have to see what is happening. And then it hurts to see the situation we're in. There was a exquisite, beautiful, but heart-wrenching poem. I don't know if anyone was in the Old Humanity, in the Word Up yesterday. The poet she was partly exploring how does she respond to her daughter when her daughter asks her the question about the situation we're in. And I think I was talking to someone at the festival, and she was involved in Extinction Rebellion, and she said, I had to stop. And she said, partly, like for all of us, there's so many other things in life, but partly it was, I can't keep engaging, I can't keep living with this reality. It is the reality, but I think this is the beauty for me of Extinction Rebellion, it's not letting any of us forget where we are, what the situation is. It's there. It's big banners, it's dyings, it's processions. But I can see in myself, and I can see that it's so hard to maintain an awareness really of the truth, like to tell the truth that Extinction Rebellion is asking our government, the media, but all of us, to be there with that truth. And one of the things, I heard it and I practiced with it, and I keep having to go back to it, is, I don't know if I first heard it, but there's a particular interview on YouTube, David Suzuki and Thich Nhat. It's also in other books, where Thich Nhat says, all civilizations are impermanent. Like our human life form, civilizations are born, they exist, and they die, including our one. And if we carry on the way we're going, and this was, maybe 30 years ago, 20 years ago, if we carry on the way we're going, maybe a lot quicker than it needs to be, or a lot faster than it needs to end. But he was talking about coming to an acceptance of this, that our civilization will end, and that maybe it will end sooner than we think. But soon after, he had this smile on his face, and he was saying, if we really accept that, that can give us the energy to do what we need to do. And for me, it's a paradox, and sometimes I've accepted it, but I've stepped back from then acting. Okay, I'll do my little bit. I won't want to consume something that is too bad for the planet, but this is a whole big thing that is too much. But I think this is one of the reasons why I'm so grateful for Extinction Rebellion, of giving a response that seems commensurate to the situation we're in, and holding those two things, the acceptance on the one hand and the action on the other hand. So finding, okay, maybe the worst will happen, maybe it's going to get pretty terrible. I think if anyone has read the work of, I think his name is Jem Bendel, The Deep Adaptation, this is becoming more and more looking at, with our eyes open, of what the next years might look like. So finding space and finding the practice, finding the the ways to, through the breathing, through the body, through nature, to be with that acceptance of the situation, but equally hold that with action. And as I've said, I think I've expressed already the appreciation for Extinction Rebellion, because for me it feels both a strong action that is commensurate with the situation we're in, but also so utterly non-violent. You know, when I first went to the Declaration of Rebellion, and Gail Bradbrook was saying, no, we have to, I can't remember what she said, but something about the police. You know, they're having a hard time of it too, and they have their struggle. And to see that this is not, things really need to change, but it's not a person that needs to be demonized. That principle of not blaming and shaming. So I didn't, when I first heard about Extinction Rebellion, I couldn't quite believe that non-violence could be held quite so deeply by quite so many people. I think I had a bit of arrogance, actually. I think I thought, oh, you need to have a spiritual practice to really do non-violence, you know, to really from your heart do non-violence. How can so many people, you know, not that many people really know about meditation? I was very humbled, actually, when I went along to see actually it can come from so many sources, and it can manifest in so many ways. And there was so many, being around in April in London, there were so many different ways that people were offering gifts and offering art or song or dance or just wholehearted fearlessness. There was a couple, I presume, locked on to each other and to one other person, initially in a tent in Marble Arch, and this was when the blockade was falling, and they were chanting the statement of intent of Extinction Rebellion, very beautiful, sounds so Buddhist actually, but without being Buddhist. I think this is the beauty of transcending form. The essence can be there without this having to be a Buddhist thing or not a Buddhist thing. And they were just repeating the statement again and again as the police were using the chainsaws. Gradually the tent went, and they were there on the road as they were being cut out, and they were just repeating and repeating. And you could tell these were just ordinary people, and they had just found in their heart such non-fear to be there. I just sat kind of low level so I could see them through the legs of the police who were surrounding them, and just took in how much inspiration from them. So when I was spending time at the April uprising, so many times this phrase from Thich Nhat Hanh came to my mind, that he said, he's spoken often about the need for a collective awakening, and he said, I think the next Buddha will not be a person. The next Buddha will be a community living in harmony and awareness. And you know, Thich Nhat Hanh is now in Vietnam, and he is living, you know, I think it's widely accepted, his last days. And some of his monastic students were in London at the time of Extinction Rebellion, and they came and they did walking meditation around Marble Arch and really brought that into their teachings. And I don't know, I can't say for sure, but I hope he would be also, if he was able, he would be there and he would do walking meditation, and he would have the feeling that I feel, that this is a feeling of this is a collective awakening, this is a Buddha in action.